Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first and probably the only Sunesha's Swine Radio. So the reason I'm doing this kind of radio show is that my PC has overheating problems, and it actually overheats and go very high, so it can actually damage the CPU. But I can record audio without having to be fearful of my CPU overheating. So this is an alternative until I fix my computer. And if you're listening to this now, when it has been broadcasted, I think on Thursday, I will get some thermal paste to fix my computer. So, okay, that's enough about why I wanted to do this Swine Radio show. So let's get on to the topic I have decided to discuss with you guys. And that topic is challenges in game and why difficulty matters a lot to me. So let me begin. So I played the computer games since I was like 4 or 5 years old, and in that time the only things was out was Space Invaders and Pac-Man on PC. And my father had those games on floppy disk, and I really loved them because it was fun when I was in that age. And I moved on to other games. I remember not really knowing English or anything, so it was really a fun experience for me to play computer games when they come out. I played a role-playing game that I forgot the name on. It was kind of a platform and a role-playing game, and I played that, and that was some stupid copy protection that I needed a manual to find something in the manual, but my English was non-existent because I haven't learned English yet. So I always had to run to my mom, and I lived in the countryside, so she had horses that she worked with every day. So I ran out to the stable, mom, help me! Which sentence word is it on this there? And then she showed me a word, and I put it in so I could play my game. And this was a fun process that happened every day. But I remember that game. I never actually really made it in that game. I think I was too young and I didn't understand the objectives because it was in English. But I kept playing it anyway because I thought it was cool. I had this sword you can hit some monsters with, and I think I never went through the first level, but I kept coming back to the game in the hope of I was gonna beat it. And I remember that it was a fun time. I had a fun time with that game, even that I didn't get anywhere. But you had the patience of a child that can see a movie over and over again without getting bored. So I think that changes very fast in a child's life, where then they come to that age that everything is boring if you have to wait more than 2 minutes. I actually moved on to new games, and one of the games I got a Nintendo system and Nintendo 8-bit, and my first game was Super Mario Bros, and I really struggled with that game, and I got used to that. I think I finished that game only once in my childhood, but I kept carefully playing it, and then later on I moved on to Legend of Zelda, and that was a game I actually beat a couple of times because I really loved that game. It was something special with it, and you have to use easy strategy to go far, and I just played it over and over again. I really loved that game in that time, and those was challenging games if you compare to this was in the 80s and early 90s. This was a time when computer games was very expensive. They cost as much as today, but you have to actually count with the inflation value. So I would say that a computer game cost about $100 in today's value, and you only had one game, and you have to. And one way to make the games last longer was to make them more difficult, because there will be more value for the customer to play them. And I think today we are very spoiled with these games where you actually you can a difficulty level to. I think in Deus Ex Human Revolution very well put out on the easiest difficulty in the Deus Ex Human Revolution is tell me a story, and most of the game today is actually tell a story. It's not a game, it's more a kind of interactive story, and I can understand why people like that part of the game, to experience the story, to be part of a world and a story. But they are really very challenging games, and I think I can miss the hardcore days of failing sometimes, because you have to you don't have to do much to overcome. For example, I'm looking forward. I got some very interest in my channel. I never got so many views on I played on Shadow Light, and I play this on the easier difficulty, but I have decided to do a let's play of that game, and I will play this on the harder difficulties. I played it for 8 hours. I never died. Not once. Okay, that can be a good thing also, so it can be entertaining with a game mechanics or anything, but I think that's very typical of today's games. You maybe die the first hour you play the game, and then you never die again. And that's just how games are today. They are more about the stories and the interactive story to experience something new. And it's a very big change from me coming from the older games, where the value of the game was the replay value, because you have to actually play this game over and over again, and if you want to experience something new, the only way to do that was to become better at the game, and that opened up new things for you. Today we are served everything. It's more like movies, and I remember back then when games was described in the computer or game magazines in Sweden and so on, and they always talked about that one day it will be like to be in a movie, and you will control the story and you will have choices, and we actually have reached that point of computer and video games where actually we can the game makers can make us experience a story and be a part of a story and control that story. And that was like science fiction when I was a kid, because games was like board games or anything. It was about playing the game, but if you're, for example, very good telltale game, the Walking Dead, and that's about interactive stories where you can make choices that actually change the outcome of the story. But to be honest, actually your choices barely matters. I think there is one choice per episode that changes the story very bit, but that's like on the side of the main story. But I think it is a good try, and it was very entertaining. But and then there we have the problem with the tell the story difficulty, because the replay value is non-existent, because you have already experienced everything the game has to offer. So either you have to wait a couple of years until I forgot the story. It becomes more like a movie. A good movie you can see once a year, and I think a good story game is the same. So you still can be in the story. And I'm just making comparisons about games back now and then, and some people get very frustrated, and I understand the new younger generation. They had never had. They have the games that can do so much more. When I was a kid, games were, as I repeating myself over and over, it's a big difference, because then a difficult game meant a good game, so you had some value, so you can play it a lot longer and experience new things. And today they serve you everything up. And for me, when these new modern games started, I actually liked it very much. Especially I played Fallout games. That's new for me, and back then, and I was so impressed, because those games really tell the story, and in Fallout you can really, and that was one of those games that you had the freedom to do what you want, and you can really change the outcome of the whole history, and it was just a fantastic game, and replay value was very, very high on that one, because I remember if you made a character with low intelligence, he couldn't either speak or nothing, he will just say okay, and you can finish the game anyway, but when you did that, it became a whole new game, because people was always insulting you and everything, and I thought that was one playthrough for me in that game. Later on, I played this Fallout, and I decided to destroy the world, and I did it. And the game, I loved it, and that was a fantastic experience for me to be a part of a story, to really change the story. I think even today there are no games that have that high freedom like the Retro Fallout 1 and 2. They really gave you a world to do what you want with, and you could change that world whatever you wanted it to be. And I think that was a very good application how to tell a story, because they really made the player to make the choices. I can feel like story driven games today are more about like a movie maker. He wants you to do those kind of decisions, and they force you into situations where you have no freedom of choice at all, and often they say they have choices, but when you see the cutscenes, you see this will always end in the same way, and you don't have the choice to really change the story. So I think that's is very boring, and it's very usual. They say they have choices, but it's actually not completely true. You are always limited to following their main story. You can do some side stuff that changes things, but it's not a real story. So okay, I have talked about story. After all, that's one of the things today that are very important today. But I was talking about challenge of gameplay, and I must say one of those games where the challenge and the difficulty can make the game even better is Firaxis game XCOM Enemy Within or Enemy Unknown. There are two versions of this, and they have this difficulty level that's called Iron Man. Iron Man means that you only have one save, so if you die, you die. You can't change that. So when you have a troop of soldiers and you take them to missions, and if they die on the mission, they die forever, and there is no reloads or anything. There aren't even a save load game, so you're fucked when you die. And that actually brings some tension to the game, where the challenge is when you have spent 10 missions with one of your soldiers, you really start to like him. You remember his name and his kills and everything, and then some alien pop up and shoot him to hell. And that's a very emotional response, because you have spent 10 missions with this soldier, you have taken him, and you maybe have upgraded him, you have maybe given him a name or customized his looks and language and everything, but when he dies, he's dead forever. And I think there is the difficulty level. This tells the story, the struggle against the alien invasion. And your soldiers are your core soldiers. You have 6 soldiers that you can take on the mission. They really become characters like in no other game you have played, because one of those, for example, you love your sniper and you think he's cool and he's killing everyone, and then he gets eaten by an alien and he dies forever. And that emotional response you get then it can't actually compete with any story, because you really invested in this soldier, and when he dies, something inside of you die also, and that's a very nice addition. And it's like when you barely finish a mission, or you have some bad luck and you start losing soldiers, and you're starting to miss starting to lose this mission, you have the choice to extract and fail the mission, but you can save your soldiers. So there is the balance. Okay, I lost 2 of my 6 soldiers in this mission. Should I extract and save the rest of them? Can I finish this mission without more deaths? And those choices become very hard, because you want to finish that mission, and there will be consequences if you fail the mission. But if every one of your troops die, your best soldiers maybe die, and that actually adds tension. And I think even if you don't play on the hardest difficulty, that's the real way to play the game. Play it on an easy difficulty, but make it Iron Man, so your decisions matter, because that's one of the things today. You can save, you have checkpoints, you have everything, and you always can restart, so your death really doesn't matter, and you don't have to make tough choices at all, because you can if you're starting to fail something and things didn't go as you planned, you just start over. But you never in that way, you never really actually get invested into the game, because you will just want to see the story and see what's happened next. But it's like your choices or your gameplay doesn't matter, because you can always do it over. And I think XCOM and Within and XCOM and with Unknown have really cashed that tension about making hard choices, and you are really proud. I remember one of my first really failings in that game. I played with and I only had one guy, and I decided to fight it out and then do the mission. And in the last part I have 3 alien left, and I only had 1 soldier, so I have to do like a running fighting retreat. I retreated back, and the aliens came after me, and I shot at them and from cover, so then I have to move back once more. So it was like a 10 minutes retreating fight with them, and I actually won the mission. All the aliens got dead, and that soldier, I still remember him, and he really got emotional response, because he felt like a hero. He had won against odds. All his friends died in the mission, but he was left alive, and he fought against odds, and the enemy had all the advantage, but he struggled through that mission. And I remember that soldier yet, and that was one of my better gaming experience for a long time. It felt so great to win the mission with just 1 soldier, and I know the risk was that I would lose him too. 5 of his friends was lying dead in the level, so and if I have just used not Iron Man mode, actually after I have lost 2 of my 6 soldiers, I probably would have to reload it, and I would never experience that kind of struggle or emotional experience, because I think the big part about gaming is that it doesn't matter if you fail. So people get lazy, and they don't understand that the difficult level can actually bring something new to the game, an emotional response, and that kind of frustration and happiness to overcome something. You lose that if you don't challenge yourself. I think find a difficult level that really matters for you, and really work that difficult level till you can master the game, and allow yourself to actually make mistakes and don't reload, because that will actually leave you with a better experience where everything goes perfectly. If you want to see a story, I would recommend to see a movie here, but sometimes it's very nice to experience a challenge, and especially if you overcome this challenge, and that can bring something extra. For me, one of the games that I really started to challenge myself for the first time in a long time was Hitman Blood Money, because I played that game, and I just got my Xbox at that time, and I had played game for a long time, and I started this game, and I discovered this achievement system that Xbox have, and the PlayStation system have the trophy system. And I really wanted to finish the game because I thought about all games. I want to experience everything, every difficulty level. And I remember I worked myself up those difficult levels. I started on normal and I finished the game and get the silent assassin rating. And on normal you had like 7 saves, and then you went to the expert difficulty level where you have 3 saves. And I really started to experience the game in a new way because I struggled through this difficult levels, especially when I started on expert, where the AI unshackled itself and started to actually act like a real challenge, and you couldn't shoot yourself out of bad situations because it was suicide. It really made me play those levels and find out a lot about the game, and it was a great experience because sure, I struggled. It was hard and I was not used to the Xbox controls and so on, but that game, I started to find many fun things in that game. And I think when I made my Hitman Blood Money Let's Play on my channel, I have shown a lot of crazy stuff in that walkthrough, because I have played that game so much, so I can really show my viewers a lot of the game most people won't even experience because they are just running through the game. So, and I remember when I went up to the professional difficulty, it means there were no saves. You have to be perfect. That really started to challenge me, and I struggled, but after a while I got to understand the game, how the game worked, and so on. And actually, it started to be a fun challenge because I really knew how I gonna overcome my problems. And when I did that, I really felt nice, because I remember when I popped my last achievement, the professional difficulty on that, completing the whole game on professional difficulty. I felt great because I knew when that achievement popped, I have experienced this game in all ways I can experience it. And I wouldn't have done that if I only played normal like I did on many games before. I would probably just play the games for 5-6 hours, like many games actually are on normal. For example, I can finish a Call of Duty games in 4 hours on the easy normal difficulty level, but talking about difficulty levels, Call of Duty doesn't have difficult levels. They only have less health and more accurate enemies, so it's not really a challenge. It's all about cheating the game and find an angle where you can shoot your enemies without getting shot at. So it's not really a challenge, it's just frustration. But if I go back to the Hitman game, professional means that if you screw up, you can really lose everything and the whole level go berserk. But if you take it carefully and really think about your choices and take it slow and try to experience and use some strategy, it actually brings something to the game. And if you play it like a shooter, it will be frustrating because it's like real life. If 5 people are shooting at you, you probably will die. It's not like Call of Duty when 20 people shoot at you and nobody hits you. That's kind of but I think people play it for the multiplayer, those kind of games. I actually, when I went starting to the Xbox, started to experience many games and start popping achievements, many games. I played most of my games on the hardest difficulty from the beginning after that, and it can be frustrating first 2 hours, but as soon as you get used to the game, it can actually bring something extra to the gameplay, especially if the AI is fair, it's not cheating or anything, but then it can bring an extra. And I think my Xbox experience was I played the World of Warcraft, and I was a very competitive PvP player, even before they started with PvP instances. And I remember I usually played PvP for 4 to 5 hours per day, and I was very good at that. I would say that I won 9 of 10 fights, and I'm without bragging, I was one of the best PvP players on that server, and that was how it is. And I remember when the game Blizzard released the PvP instances and introduced the teamwork and so on, and I started a PvP team, and I was actually max ranked in those days. When you lost rank, when you lose the PvP, you have to win the matches to come. So I was highest rank on the server for many months, but after that it was the gold farming in that game that break me, because I don't really like the PvP content with the big bosses, even though they are challenging. But I thought it was boring, and sitting in a raid waiting 2 hours to everyone to arrive and start over when somebody did a mistake, it was not for me. But the PvP was challenging, and I really liked that system in World of Warcraft, especially in the early versions when it wasn't a Caribbean, when a PvP server was a PvP server, and people was not whining about ganking and so on. And it was a part of the game. If you joined a PvP server, you will be killed by other players, but they changed that very much. So that was one of the things that made me lose interest in that game, because they took all the PvP from the World of Warcraft and put it into instances, and that was not really fun, because one of my best moments it was a role-playing server, and I also role-play, and one of my best experience was we arranged a big fight out in the desert in World of Warcraft, and I managed to get around 600 people to come to the desert, and we all lined up in this desert, and it was a great experience because it was 600 people out in the desert, and then everyone at the right beginning, when the clock went on, we started a fight and crashed the whole server. So whole side of the World of Warcraft on that server went down for 45 minutes because they couldn't handle so many people PvPing out in the world. But it was a great experience. Then they made it too casual, because I wished that people would understood that PvP meant that people will kill you, but people played PvP servers because they thought they was the best server, but or anything, but they weren't really interested in PvP at all. So it was really frustrating, because people got angry when they got killed on a PvP server, and it's not really, are you stupid, why don't you play on a PvP server? I always tell them, because then you have no risk at all to get killed, because you can't get killed by other players. And that's when I started to lose interest with the PvP instances. I just got my PvP rank, and then all PvP was moved to instances. But the good thing was playing on a roleplay servers, that we arranged a very fun guild wars, where guilds from the islands and Horde, we had really fun fighters. And actually my PvP guild, RP PvP guild, we actually killed all the alliance leaders. We even got into these cities, I've forgotten their names, and killed the leaders of all the factions as a role-playing challenge, and it was a great experience. We really invaded like 80 players gone into and we killed the leaders of the other faction, the NPCs there, and I can tell them they are 100 times more difficult than all the PvE instances, because all players will try to kill you at the same time you try to kill their leaders. But it was a great thing. I also remember we went on a ganking mission with 40 rogues. We all stealthed inside one of the cities, and killed all the guards and all the things, and then win and so on, and those experience was great. But after a while, people started to say that we actually was just griefers and gankers, but it was a PvP server, and it was so silly because people got frustrated about getting dead on a PvP server. So I left those games, and that was when I got the Xbox. And after that, after being a very highly competitive PvP player on World of Warcraft, it was actually where I started to look at challenge on my Xbox also, and the stealth game has always been a very good way for me to challenge myself, because I think the fair challenges is all about reading your enemy and adapt to the enemy and have strategies and understand the game mechanism. And when you do that, it becomes a lot easier to do stealth games, and I think a shooting game are often not really very challenging. I actually spent 14 months in the Swedish military, so I was a second lieutenant, and I was a conscript, but I was the highest rank there, so I learned a lot of strategy in military. So I remember I played a game I really liked on the hardest difficulty. It was Dragon Rising, a military shooter, a squad shooter with tactics, and it was a great game because it was almost impossible to beat if you didn't know anything about strategy. But that game really challenged me, and I remember I finished it on the hardest difficulty, and it was very fun because if you use tactics and you use your squad mates in that game, you actually got a challenge, and it was fun. And I think most shooters today are not fun because it's always about how many enemies does you kill on one mission. A typical shooter at a level, you shoot around 50 people when you're alone, and I think I don't really like that. I don't think it is fun. For example, this more tactical shooter, there is was all about maybe I have to fight a squad with 4 or 5 people, and they use strategy and I use strategy to overcome, and those fights was really difficult because you have to really know your environment and use it, and use high ground and cover in a way where most games are just most shooter is actually a linear experience, because you are forced into these tunnels. They give you the illusion that you are fighting in a big battlefield, but the truth is that you actually just moving in a linear tunnel game, and you would maybe don't have more than 200-300 meters from left to right. In Dragon Rising, you fought on a big island, and it was actually modeled after a real island outside Japan, so you can really, it was kilometers to move. So sometimes you have to plan. Some missions was just kind of scouting missions, and I have to, for half an hour, move through the terrain and get there without, and sometimes you have to use stealth and scout things, and that was the objective, not to fight. But most shooters are actually just, people complain about rail shooters, but for me, games like Call of Duty and Gears of War and everyone there, they are real rail shooters also, because only difference is that the rails are very wide, but you are moving through the same linear way through the level. There are not many choices how to overcome the missions, so this actually, so I think there are big rail shooters, and I think I have spoke enough, and this was one of the shows I had only because my PC doesn't work and my voice is starting to get hurt. You maybe hear it, and if you have been listening on this, thank you very much, and hopefully I will get producing videos later in the week when my PC is fixed, and I hope this has been interesting show. I'm not a very good talker, but at least it's nothing. I think I have been somewhat interesting at least. And as always, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.